It is absolutely no secret that the Brexiteers are absolutely desperate, and I mean desperate for a win. And I've been expecting for a while now. I mean, maybe it will come out early next year. Maybe it will come out around about December. I don't know. I'm fully expecting some sort of government um, leaflet, like we saw just 3 months into Brexit. We had the government released a statement, I think it was Department for Trade, highlighting 3 companies that were, quote, succeeding because of Brexit. And of course, at the time when we looked into those, it wasn't exactly, shall we say, fully true that they were, quote, succeeding because of Brexit. And I've always said, I always thought at the end of this year, maybe early next year, we will get some sort of document put out by the government to say, oh, look how fantastic Brexit is. Isn't it all going well? Ooh, rah, rah, rah. Isn't this fantastic? Because if you remember back when the botched Norway negotiations took place earlier this year, the government said to Norway something very, very interesting, that they weren't interested in having any talks with the EU until at least 2022. And as I've always said, that's a very interesting admission, trying to say maybe we can have going to have like a year of complete, acronisms and fightings and, saber rattling. And then next year, there's going to be this steady reliance and maybe changing of the Brexit deal, maybe, accepting, European standards, things like that. Maybe on the board, because again, maybe cooler heads, maybe it have actually prevailed. But again, we don't really know. It all depends if that document gets released or not. So Brexiteers have been very, very much desperate this year to try and spin anything they possibly can as a Brexit win. And of course, very recently, we've had Shell move its headquarters to the UK. So this was obviously, again, celebrated by Brexiteers as a, quote, victory for Brexit. But we have to ask that question again. Is this really a Brexit victory? Or is there just something deeper going on at the bottom, which in reality is going to be, should we say, a lot worse for us? So before we go diving into finding out if this is indeed a Brexit victory or not, let us first of all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee. We can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So today we turn to the New European with its title of Is Shell's UK move really a victory for Brexit? Let's find out, shall we? Brexiteers were gleeful when Royal Dutch Shell announced that it would move its head office and tax residence to the UK from the Netherlands. A clear vote of confidence in the British economy, tweeted Business Secretary Kersey Kwarteng. A huge win for Brexit Britain, triumphed the Daily Express. A big victory for Brexit Britain. Even Nigel Farage got in on the act. As ever, the truth is far more complex than the analysis, says Shell's flight from Europe has very little to actually do with Brexit. More pertinently, Shell's decision cast a shadow over the Prime Minister's Boris Johnson's environmental evangelism. And of course, the newest incarnation for a man with a quicksilvered principles and a persona that failed to convince that he blustered his way through COP26. Talk of being a very post-Brexit win is spin from the government, said Ewan Graham, the senior researcher at E3G think tank, pointing out that only about 10 jobs are due to cross the North Sea under Shell's plans. Like I say, that's nothing to what we've seen going the other way, not to say the amount of money going obviously into Europe as well. Teza Khan, founder of the climate campaign group Uplift, said Kwarteng's tweet is unbelievably tone deaf. And she contrasted this with jubilation at the UK's position on coal at the Glasgow climate talks. It is very convenient for the UK government that they focused all their energy and attention on the COPE outcomes on coal and never spoke about oil or gas. It is the second largest oil and gas producer in Europe, and as it happens, to already have at least more or less completely phased out coal from its domestic power supply, she said. And away from the spin, Shell's stated reason for this move is to end its complicated dual share structure by relocating its head office and tax base to the UK. As part of these changes, which have been approved at a general meeting back in December, the chief executive and chief financial officer will move to the UK, and the quote Royal Dutch will be dropped from the name. Most analysts agree the company was keen to escape the Netherlands about 15% dividend without withholding tax, which it has opposed for years. Not so much. So much for the push factors. What about the UK's pull factors? What was really was it a really booming post-Brexit British economy, or something far more germane to Shell's core business? The North Sea is now one of the most profitable areas in the world for oil and gas production. After all, the oil crash of the 2015-2016, the government bent over backward to try and incentivize the extraction of oil and gas, said E3G's Graham. Politics included slashing the petroleum revenue tax to zero and allowing oil giants to claim billions for decommissioning rigs and infrastructure. Of course, Shell is already benefiting from these advantages. Campaigning group Paid to Pollute says that between 2015 and 2020, Shell received something in the region of about £726 million from the UK government. And last month, an analysis by the Observer newspaper found that Shell and BP had not paid any corporation tax on oil and gas production in the North Sea for 3 years. And remember, we're in a time where we need these revenues. We need these things for, let's say, HS2 would have been, again, absolutely fantastic. We've got to put all that tax money into stuff like this, not only just into like rail infrastructure, but all types of investment into this country. Shell is also a part owner of the Cambo oil field, a very controversial project off the Shetland Islands, and is opposed by environmentalists and the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. Graham says that the government reactions to Shell's move to London strikes a very discordant tone in this context. Thorning over the arrival of Shell when it is involved in the Cambo oil field is pretty uncomfortable, he said. When Shell's move was announced, the Stop Cambo campaign tweeted this. Just 2 days after the COP26 ended in a very bitter disappointment with the 1.5 Celsius target on life support, the government is now cheering on the arrival of Shell's HQ to the UK. Shell is not a clean energy company. They are actively drilling for oil and gas. They are the problem. That is not to say that the move gives Shell more influence. It already has influence, says Calm, whose organisation is coordinating the campaign against Cambo. In terms of Shell's lobbying power and political prevalence, there is always existed in this country. Oil and gas is unquestionably has the ear of the government. The move may escalate things more slightly, but it wouldn't change things in a material way, she said. In the end, the decision on Cambo, though, although it might hold over at least 800 million barrels of oil, rests with the UK government, which has said the environmental impact assessment will be carried out first, and those who say the Cambo oil field will create employment, Calm points out that the jobs in the oil and gas sector are very precarious, with no protection when firms lose profitability. That's the nature of the future of the oil and gas industry, she said. It's in terminal decline. It's going to become increasingly volatile. So if you really care about job security, you should be managing their transition out of that industry for jobs that they have to do for the future. Some commentators also wondered if Shell's decision to move to London was influenced by a landmark Dutch court ruling last May that ordered it to move faster on cutting greenhouse gas emissions in line with the roadmap laid out by the Paris Climate Agreement. Conversationist Chris Packham tweeted this, quell surprise, earlier this year a court in Netherlands ruled that by 2030 Shell must cut its CO2 emissions by 45% compared to the 2019 levels. The decision only applies in the Netherlands, so come on over, kill the world, we don't care. But Mule Deference, the Dutch arm of Friends of the Earth, was among those who brought the groundbreaking legal case, said Shell, which has launched an appeal, would not be able to outrun the verdict. We are very, very sure it won't affect in any way the verdict itself or the appeal. The appeal will be done under Dutch law, so the move by Shell has no effect in legal sense, said Pierre de Rick, the international energy campaigner at Mule Defense. It is also very difficult to escape from environmental organizations because they are very almost everywhere. And our Friends of the Earth colleagues in the UK came out with the very strong statements to say that if Shell goes to the UK, we will see what we can do to increase pressure from our side, he said. Khan agrees, saying that Shell should not expect an easier time in the UK. The Uplift is already working with three climate campaigners in a legal challenge to the government support for the oil and gas operators, including tax breaks and judicial review that is due to be heard in December. The UK climate movement is already set to subjugate Shell to scrutiny and accountability for its actions here, and the fact that it is involved in the Cambo oil field is already attracted a lot of attention and condemnation that it seems to be incompatible with the Dutch judgment, she said. So, was this really a Brexit win? No. From all intents and purposes, we can see that this move seems to be a very, very cynical corporate ploy. And like I say, Shell isn't moving here to gain more influence over the UK government because it already has it. The Cambo oil fields over by the Shetlands do look to seem to be their goal in this. Again, we'll have to see what happens. Like I say, we're expecting that that judicial review in December, which could have huge implications on this. The fact that, again, not only Shell but BP haven't paid any corporation tax for the past 3 years should shock a lot of people, because that's a lot of money that we can use on government projects, infrastructure projects, investment in this country. You know, that is why you tax people, to keep these things running. Not only that, but services, help to run the NHS. There's all sorts of stuff you can use that money for. But we'll have to wait and see how this all turns out. But this is by far, anyway, breath, not a victory for Brexit. Shell came over here, by the looks of it, to escape a ruling in the Netherlands, and by the looks of it, it ain't going to escape, because those campaigners are going to follow it over here and campaign hard for the same things. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.